So the Las Vegas Raiders had their very first practice today post their very first preseason game Thursday against the Seattle Seahawks. And we got a couple of interesting updates coming out. Some guys are working with different units. Other players have, potentially lost their spot almost, right? We'll kind of talk about some of the reports that are coming out here. The first thing that kind of shocked a lot of Raider fans early this morning was that Jackson Powers-Johnson was apparently working with the second team unit. Antonio Mafi was apparently working with the first team unit. And I believe it was a tweet by Vincent Montanore who put it out there that JPJ was working with the second team unit. But I believe it was corrected by some of the other reporters that apparently Jackson Powers-Johnson did not practice just at all. And apparently he was just standing off to the sideline with his helmet on. Deshaun Reed said Jackson Powers-Johnson is at practice for the Raiders, but isn't participating in team drills so far today. And he ended up not playing in team drills at all for the Raiders. Some people started to speculate maybe it has to do with this regime just doesn't like Powers-Johnson. Maybe there's something kind of going on. Again, we know that JPJ is like, he's an elite football player. He's like in the top 1 or 2% when it comes to the type of, player you want at that center or guard position. He's up there. He's absolutely elite. And his tape backs that up, not even from his rookie season, but even against the Seahawks. If you watch that tape, just the way he dominates people, it's unique. You don't get that from most players. And people are still kind of confused. Like, is there something going on with the front office? Maybe the coaching staff and Powers-Johnson. Maybe, there's something deeper kind of going on. But do not worry. Obviously, we got an update coming out by Coach Pete Carroll. He put it out there saying that Jackson Powers-Johnson was dealing with the rib issue today. He tried to practice through it, but was sidelined almost from the very start of Raiders practice. So that's the official report that Pete Carroll is putting out there. He is saying that Jackson Powers-Johnson has a rib issue, probably happened from that game a couple days back. And he tried practicing through it, but obviously he was unable to, which is why he had his helmet on, why he was kind of out there, and he was just kind of standing out to the sideline. So Mafi ended up getting the first team snaps with the Raiders at right guard. And that's kind of interesting, right? Because I believe he was playing left guard in the game for the Raiders. And he was playing in the third, fourth quarter, right? He was deep into it. And that kind of tells you what the Raiders think about that guard position. Thayer Munford would have been the next man up, right? It goes, Dylan Parham, Powers-Johnson, Alex Kappa, Jordan Meredith. Those are going to be your first 4 guard options. However you want to, twist those guys in. If 2 of those 4 guys go out, that 5th guy up, it was Thayer Munford, a couple weeks back. That's not the case. Mafi has jumped Thayer Munford at this point. And I'm not shocked to hear this. Mafi actually had a pretty good game out there. When the third string group kind of comes in, it's just inexperienced players out there, right? You get guys like Lockie Tassi. Tassi had a good game, right? He was physical and all that, but you can just tell the movement's not really that good. The technique isn't really that good. Mafi was out there playing with those guys, and he was dominating people out there, right? Mafi obviously does not belong with third string or fourth string units. The guy's a good backup player. He could potentially start if he just continues to develop a little bit. And for the Raiders, he actually did start today, right? Jackson Powers-Johnson's out with the rib issue. Alex Kappa has been out. Apparently, he has a rib issue as well, so I'm not sure what's going on with people's ribs at Raiders practice, but those 2 guys are both out due to rib issues. Jackson Powers-Johnson, Alex Kappa should be back hopefully soon. Hopefully this is not a long-term injury that kind of happens. But the Raiders have said that, Mafi is basically the next man up based off of some of what we've seen. Pete Carroll was also asked about the offensive line and kind of, figuring out the starting 5. He said it's going to declare when it declares, right? He said he's not putting a timeline on it, and even said maybe that's not solidified till or past week 1. So Pete Carroll is telling us that it's basically a work in progress for the offensive line. Not a surprising update. We literally talked about this in yesterday's video as well. Pete Carroll, literally on Friday morning, the day right after the Raiders played, he kind of gave us that same update, right? He basically told us the center and right guard, or he said the center position specifically was not, it was not confirmed who the starting center was going to be. And he basically said that with the entire starting 5 today. Now, I don't expect the Raiders starting 5 to change all that much, truth be told. I think from left tackle to right tackle, we pretty much know who the 5 guys are going to be. I think that the only thing that could potentially change is Jordan Meredith or Alex Kapp. I think those are the only 2 guys that could potentially change. And then, of course, if the Raiders trade Jackson Powers-Johnson, which would shock me, That'd be the only other thing that could potentially happen, right? Now, obviously, I don't think that's going to happen. Some people have speculated it that, hey, Jackson Powers-Johnson, maybe there's just something weird going on with this coaching staff. People have brought up how there was a situation that happened with JPJ and Antonio Pierce last year, right? Remember back in training camp when Jackson Powers-Johnson wasn't practicing or he wasn't playing or whatever it kind of was. Some people have said, kind of keep an eye out. We'll see what actually kind of happens. I'd be shocked if that happens. JPJ is such a great football player. Hopefully there's no other issue with that. But I think the Raiders 5 is pretty much set in stone. Really, is Jordan Meredith better than Alex Kappa? That's going to be the question, in my opinion, right? We'll see what actually ends up happening. There's 2 other updates that I kind of want to get into. This one's a big one. I thought about doing a Tonka Hemingway film breakdown. The guy impressed the shit out of me, man. Jesse Merrick said Tonka Hemingway continues to rotate in with the first team defensive line. Thomas Booker is next to him at nose tackle. So we had that game this past Thursday. Some guys flashed and some guys sucked, and the coaching staff watches the same tape. They have eyeballs just the way I do, and they see guys that look good. And I'm not surprised to see Tonka Hemingway taking first team snaps. In fact, if I'm being honest with you guys, based off of what I saw in that one game, and it was only one game, right? So just kind of keep that in mind. But based on what I saw in that one game, if I'm deciding right now who the starting 2 defensive tackles are, right after Adam Butler, Tonka Hemingway showed the most potential. He showed the most upside. And I want to just show you guys just one play really quickly, because this kind of just sums up the type of player Hemingway showed in, on all these other snaps that he kind of played. You have this play where he basically beats the right guard super quickly, pressures the quarterback, and the quarterback takes off running. But Hemingway shows me something that majority of defensive tackles don't show. Tyree Wilson does not show what Hemingway just showed here on this snap, right? So Hemingway gets out of his stance. He's going to hesitate, right? So he's going to fake inside, fake outside. And, he does that movement with his shoulder, with his head, because what's happening is, if the ball gets snapped and Hemingway decides I'm going to go inside on this guard, the ball snaps, you just go inside, that guard's going to shut that down. But if you pair it up with, hey, I'm going to lean outside and I'm going to quickly jump inside, that guard is going to think you're going one way for you to come back the other way, right? And you just keep a guy guessing. You just keep going back and forth. It's called the hezi move. To me, it's by far the difference between great or even just productive defensive linemen and unproductive guys. Right? It's the difference between Adam Butler and Tyree Wilson. Straight up, it's the difference between why Adam Butler can get to the quarterback. Adam Butler is just as big as Tyree Wilson. Butler gets to the quarterback while Tyree Wilson's unable to get there. Even at D tackle, Tyree Wilson, I watched every single one of his, I think he played 26 snaps. The guy was terrible as a pass rusher. Pretty sure he's a bust. Unless you think run defense is you can say a guy's not a bust because he's a great run defender. Tyree Wilson's a great run defender, but as a pass rusher, he has absolutely nothing out there on tape. The guy has yet to develop. I don't understand why Rob Leonard does not take Tyree Wilson and say, hey, I'm going to teach you how to hezi. I'm going to teach you a pass rush move, because this guy just bull rushes on every single play. Doesn't make sense to me. Regardless, Tonka Hemingway, again, a little bit of movement, a little bit of hezi. He pairs it up with the swipe. He'll rip or he'll spin, he'll swim over the top. I've seen Tonka Hemingway's college tape, and I've referenced this in the past. The guy can spin as well. He showed a spin move in college as well. If you show on tape that, hey, you can beat a guy in front of you by spinning to the inside or spinning to the outside, you pair it up with the hezi move and swipes, and if you can do that, you can develop into a good football player. If you can't do that, you'll never develop. We're seeing it with Tyree Wilson. We saw that with Cleveland Farrell as well. These guys they just don't have that movement to be a good football player. And I spent 4 minutes complaining about this to tell you guys that it is literally the difference between a good football player and a bad football player. Abdul Carter played 6 snaps yesterday for the New York Giants. 6 snaps. And you can already tell he's a top 5 player at his position. You can tell with guys based off of movement. Abdul Carter went up against all-pro left tackle Dion Dawkins. He had 3 total pass rushing snaps. Of the 6 plays, 3 of them were pass rushing. 2 of those 3 pass rushing plays were against Dion Dawkins. He smoked him both times. One was just a straight up just beat him right to the inside. The second time he gets close. But if you really look at Abdul Carter, he's utilizing that hezzy move. He's faking inside, faking outside, right? You got to keep these guys guessing. And Hemingway, to me, showed that a little bit. Now, obviously, just having that trait isn't going to allow you to be a great football player. You still got to develop the hands and the passer's technique. You got to develop being able to like shed and detach from guys. But he looked good, and I'm not surprised that he's getting first team defensive line reps. I want to see Hemingway actually start for the Raiders. To me, he has the most upside. And Thomas Booker's right there as well. The difference between Booker and Hemingway is Booker doesn't have that hezzy in his tape. He doesn't have passer's technique. What Booker does have, though, is he's very explosive. He's fast. He gets uphill super, super, super quickly. He's faster than Hemingway out of his stance, which, that's a great trait to have. If you can have one D tackle where you can just attach, or you can combine those two guys where they're fast and they have that ability to move, you get yourself a great defensive tackle, right? But I think both guys have potential. I think Hemingway's better, though, than Booker, potential-wise, right? I'd put him a little bit higher. We'll see what ends up happening as we kind of go forward. One other guy I just want to kind of give you guys a quick update on is Jamal Adams. Ryan McFadden says, during team period, wrapped up with Raiders linebacker Jamal Adams tipping Aiden O'Connell's pass attempt. He said that Jamal Adams was with the first team defense on that play. We're seeing Jamal Adams taking first team snaps. Now, he took first team snaps, I believe it was last week at practice for the first time. Literally, just a couple days before the Raiders actually went out there and played, he took first team snaps for the very, very, very first time. And he's now taking first team snaps consistently with the unit, at least based off the one practice we've had. I want to see Jamal Adams actually start for the Raiders, right? I think you have to really consider what we kind of saw on tape. And again, I talked about some of the same stuff in yesterday's video, and yesterday's video was mostly based off of tape. Today's video is based off of actual practice, actual updates that are coming out. I said Jamal Adams needs to start yesterday based off the tape from Thursday. Today, the Raiders are actually implementing it, which is why we're talking about it again. I want to see this guy start against the 49ers. I want him to take meaningful snaps. Jamal Adams, his football IQ, how smart he is, how fast he sees things, how he processes things, it's in the top 1%, right? Like, he's quick, he's fast, he's a great processor. And we saw that against the Seahawks, right? We saw that against, when Anthony Bradford tried reaching him and he quickly uses the hands and jumps the gap. We see this guy actually looking good out there. So I hope the Las Vegas Raiders allow Jamal Adams to start or at least prove himself. Watching the linebackers, Tommy Eichenberg looked good as well. Jamal Adams, Jermaine Pratt was out there kind of doing this thing in coverage. Was not a fan of Landon Roberts, right? And I made that very, very clear in yesterday's video as well. The guy had a missed tackle. He had 2 blown coverages, and he only played like 9 snaps, maybe it was like 4 snaps. I don't remember. He didn't play a lot of snaps, right? So hopefully, I think it was 4. So hopefully the Raiders kind of figure it out as we go forward. Love some of the stuff we're kind of hearing. I am going to do a film breakdown. Let me know who you guys want to see in the comments below. We'll definitely be getting into a ton of different guys. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.